President Trump offered his condolences to the people of New Zealand, and when asked about the terror attack during an event at the Oval Office, the president said that he doesn't see white nationalism as a rising threat. Joining me now to discuss is Democratic strategist Nayyera. She's a former Obama White House senior director and a former State Department spokesperson. Welcome to the show. Thanks for being with us.
Good to be with you this morning.
So let's start here. It was just the facts. Reconcile the president's characterization of white nationalism and what he sees as a very small group with the facts.
It is very difficult to reconcile, Victor, and it comes across as more as part of a president's agenda of who he wants to be appealing to with his rhetoric. It's frankly, he's not appealing to those who are concerned about their safety, and he's not appealing to those who are worried about religious freedom in this country, particularly given the facts that every law enforcement agency, most of the research coming out of the government itself will tell you that 80% of the attacks on American soil that are considered terrorist attacks are right-wing extremist attacks. But all we have to do is look at we looked at Charlottesville, we look at Pittsburgh recently. There are several examples of this in the United States, globally, and it all ties into how white nationalists and terror networks use words. We're used to hearing the words twisted of religion to influence, for example, ISIS, and for ISIS to get a broader network, but we're seeing that white nationalists use the words of historical leaders and use the words of other attackers. And even in this case, the New Zealand Manifesto mentions Donald Trump's words about denigrating immigration. So that is all part and parcel of how words matter in these situations to influence people.
You know, the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, their newly released report shows that white supremacists increased their propaganda efforts by 182% in 2018, and the number of racist demonstrations and rallies up about 20%. Let's talk about the use of words, because I think that's important. The president, a few months ago, quite notably called a question about his rhetoric and his embrace of nationalism, not white nationalism, but nationalism at the time, and a perceived connection to white nationalism, a racist question. How do they use these words? We talked about how they hear it, but how do they use it? And what we're noticing is that it's not just domestic, but all the way in Australia, New Zealand, as we see across Europe.
Now, Donald Trump has tapped into a global movement of people who feel aggrieved and under attack, that their way of life is also potentially disappearing because of diversity and immigration. In Poland, we saw 60,000 people marching for a white Europe protection parade. And so this is part of the harder work of understanding how we all have to live together, how we make diversity work and not have it be divisive. But that division is something that leaders are capitalizing on for votes. And these words go beyond just the rhetoric of speeches. They also go into actual public policy. Under the Trump administration in 2017, the entire Countering Violent Extremism program was changed. That's the program that was supposed to look at extremist movements throughout the United States. And Donald Trump changed it to eliminate right-wing terror networks and, in fact, make it exclusively about radical terrorist Islam.
Well, how much of this can, if we're talking about legislation and we're talking about resources, can be legislated, for lack of a better term, away? That an investment can reduce the rallies, the traffic online, the hate, and these attacks that we're seeing?
Now, the internet has clearly allowed all sorts of information to spread, so what might have been a localized issue or sentiment, people are now able to find connections not just across the country, but as we talked about, overseas as well, and find solidarity in that. That's part of what this New Zealand attacker was trying to do with his manifesto, to get it online, to get it in the hands of people who might rise up and join him in a civil war. So there's a social aspect of this, of really understanding why violence is not the answer to any of these situations. But then there's the policy solution. The internet is not going to be regulated anytime soon, but hate speech is something that most of the websites and most of our apps do not allow. So there's the self-reporting, there's the self-monitoring that we can do with what we encounter. But clearly, when the government is sending the message that this type of terror does not matter, that in fact immigration, the existence of immigration, is the problem. I mean, Donald Trump in his speech yesterday echoed some of the similar language that the manifesto writer was using. That is the signal that is most dangerous, that needs to be curbed. And for that, really the only solution is changing the nature of the people we have in government.
Yeah, well, words matter, and of course, dollars matter too. Nayyera, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.